Hello, everyone. I'm Mithra, and this is going to be a spoiler-free discussion of the Gambler's Chest. I know Black Friday is coming up. I know many players in the Kingdom Death community like to jump in on that juicy Black Friday discount. It is possible, but not confirmed, that we might see a Gambler's Chest discount. If that is a thing, hopefully, this video will help you decide. Now, as everyone has seen from my channel, I am struggling with the Gambler's Chest. But hopefully, and luckily, I have some support in helping our spoiler-free discussion of Gambler's Chest. I'm joined by Tennis Dude. He's been in my videos before. Hello, Tennis.
Howdy.
And then a very special guest, which I am so happy to have. We have Big Deno from YouTube.
Hello, brah. Hello, Tennis.
Hello. You have done. I don't know how far back your videos are, but I've been watching them. I think you're on Lantern Year 26 of your third time through using Gambler's Chest. Is that correct?
It is finished now. Yeah, I completed it yesterday. So 3 full playthroughs, all on my YouTube channel.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Yeah, I've done 4. I haven't got through it though. I'm struggling my way through. Tennis, how many have you done?
I finished 2, and I just started my third earlier this week.
Now, Tennis. I know Tennis did. I don't know. It's not confirmed, but I have heard rumors, and I saw your Twitch stream. You might have been the first one to defeat Godhand. I don't know if that's confirmed, but I saw it. I know, Deno, you also defeated Godhand. I saw that as well. Twice. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you. The second time was a little bit harder because Taste made me do it with the God Hand and one of his special rules. So
yes,
that
I
was
saw
challenging.
That. Yeah, it's a little harder that way.
But Tennis, you have done it. So I've done it 4 times. Well, I've done it 4 times. I've gotten to Gambler. I have fought Gambler. I have beaten Gambler. I've not yet had a chance to do King yet, mostly because I was going to play off stream and stuff, but I don't know if you see, I ran polls and stuff, and people really want me to do it blind and on stream, so I agreed to do that. So I can only discuss things that I've gotten to so far, because I will do what they ask and continue to play through it blind. But I know, Tennis, you've done 2 People to Dreamkeeper, as stated, pure from the Gambler's Chest campaigns, correct?
Yes.
And Deno has a variety of stuff he's done. He's messed around with everything. You've gotten green armor in there. I've seen you do. Your current one is Lantern with 7 expansions, right? The one you said you just finished.
Yeah, People of the Lantern was the latest one. I dropped out Kingsman and put in Slenderman, and Sunstalker, Dragon King, just to see how Ark survivors interacted in People of the Lantern. And yeah, it was interesting. So good fun.
All right, so we have a wide amount of time. It's probably hundreds of hours, I would assume. I think I've put in hundreds of hours by myself. I'm assuming both of you probably have as well. So,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We shall get started. Now, again, this is spoiler free, so we will keep it to as base level as we can. We'll try to be as informative as we can without spoilering things. But let's get started and jump in. We will be doing a spoiler discussion after this. So there will be a second video out, possibly a third. We shall see. So the Gambler's Chest defines itself as a expansion that contains many new elements that will challenge Kingdom Death monster players. It includes the People of the Dreamkeeper, a campaign that weaves together the myriad of game elements found within. These elements include narrative sculptures, patterns and seed patterns, encounters, scouts of death, wanderers, the Crimson Crocodile, Smog Singers, Atnus, the King, the Gambler, the God Hand, and Ark survivors. Now, first and foremost, full disclosure, the Gambler's Chest was included with most pledge levels of Kickstarter 2. That is the 1.5 second Kickstarter of Kingdom Death. Tennis and myself did not pay the full current list price. If you were original backer, the pledge levels, I think if you backed on the day one, I think you might have gotten it for 50 USD, and I think like literally day two, they were like, all right, it's kind of crazy. It goes up to 100 USD, I think literally day two. However, Deno has paid the current list price of 400 USD at the time of this recording. Now again, maybe Black Friday will change that. Maybe the future will change it. But currently, Deno paid list price. So, first question. The Gambler's Chest is very nearly, I think it's a 20 USD difference of the core game. Do you think, well, the Gambler, and from this point forward, the Gambler's Chest might be referred to us as GCE, as we talk about it, or just GC. That's how the community gives to it. So shorthand, whenever we say GCE or GC, we're talking about Gambler's Chest. So, do you think that Gambler's Chest is worth nearly the price of the core game? Tennis, we'll start with you, real quick.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. Well, I generally of the experience that KDM is, in general, is a much better value proposition if you engage with the hobby side. And just the hobby side alone of the chest is really solid. It has, I think it's like 40-some different Survivor miniatures, all of which, most of which are narratives, and some are the armor kits. And then what? How many monsters? It's like 1, 2, 3,
7?
4, 5. Yeah.
Or, well, technically, Smog Singers are 3 and Bone Eaters are 5.
Yeah, so like 7 different monsters, and like some of those are really huge or multi things. So the plastic alone is a bunch. Then you have numerous different systems that are all really, really good. All the monsters that are really, really good. Gosh, it is hard to give like another like $400 purchase for your $420 game. And that is probably the part I would say is like the dodgiest bit. It's definitely worth it if you know you love KDM and you're gonna be invested and do it all, but it is a massive lump sum that kind of makes it a little tricky to get into.
Deno?
Sorry, bro. I was just going to say, I like to answer that question by thinking about cost per play. I'll buy a $70 game and play it twice. So that's cost me $35 per play. I've spent probably $2,000 to $3,000 on Kingdom Death, and I've played 15 campaigns. Every one of those campaigns, or the majority of them, have gone for 30-odd Lantern years, which is, a huge amount of actual gameplay and a huge amount of plays, which probably takes the actual cost per play significantly lower than most of the games that I buy. So if as Tennis said, you're someone who knows that you enjoy Kingdom Death and you are passionate about the hobby, it's a fantastic value purchase. But if you're someone who's maybe not sure that you're actually going to get into the game heavily, if you're still one of those people who buys it, puts it on the shelf, and then tries to play it but doesn't really get it over the line, maybe it's not as worthwhile for someone like that.
Yeah, getting a cheaper expansion that is a much, much smaller price point, it's probably going to be better.
Yep, I'm pretty much in full agreement. I've done videos on this. I've talked live streams. I do lots of stuff, but basically my stance still stays the same, even as the price point has raised. I've done videos on it when we thought it was going to release in 21, when we thought it was going to release in 22. Basically, the price point is very good for what you're getting plastic-wise. No argument there. When compared to standard KDM prices, remember, I'm going to compare this to what you normally pay for Kingdom Death quality, Kingdom Death branded miniatures. Then the plastic in the Cube chest is really good. As I have said, my stance is, If you're just getting into Kingdom Death, the core game is a great value and you do not need any expansions of any type. If you're willing to spend money on expansions and you want to spend nearly this, you will not be able to piecemeal single expansions to get this equivalent value. So if you're willing to spend the value on Gambler's Chest, it is the best. Or if you're willing to spend $400 on Kingdom Death expansions, this one is the best. You won't be able to piecemeal it together. That's my stance.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So, let's talk about piecemeal. Gambler's Chest was pitched and is designed to be a collection of modular systems to be used however the player decides going forward. This includes into Wave 4, things like that. Any expansion that you have or want to add to your campaign, Gambler's Chest is designed to act like a single expansion, only to be it's like a system of expansions, like it's just a box full of toys. Do you think that the price point is still good for someone who only wants to purchase this because they're interested in the systems itself, not because they're interested in all of the aspects? So, for example, let me clean this up. It's be like if someone really likes the idea of Ark survivors and they know Wave 4 is going to have knowledges and philosophies and they know maybe that Scouts discoveries will be a thing, and someone who has, purchase some of the future stuff, is Gambler Chest something that they should be getting just so they can use those systems? How do you feel about that price point?
Just like system-wise, probably not, but you're discounting all of the monsters, all of because it is also 4 different generic monsters that you can toss into any campaigns. The Croc, the Smog Singers, Atnis, the King, and also the Bone Eater, so 5 there. So if you're like, wow, I really, really just want Ark survivors and Scouts and stuff, probably not, because 400 is a lot for just kind of those things. Just kind of what I have to say on it.
Yeah, I tend to agree that it wouldn't be a good investment if you were only interested in piecemeal components. But that it's interesting that the one that you picked, Ark Survivors, is probably the only one that would make me want to buy it for that purpose.
To be fair,
it's a fundamental shift.
Yeah, I think this is this question. Kingdom. I'm just going to say it as it is. Kingdom Death has a big FOMO attached to it, and I think that's where this comes from. I think this comes from oh no, Wave 4 is coming out after Gambler's Chest. Is this a fundamental shift, as Deno just said? So I think that's where this question's coming from, and I understand that. I would think that if you already own all of Wave 4, if you bought, or if you just didn't get, say you didn't get the Kickstarter and you got, the campaigns, no, Expansions of Death. I think Expansions of Death even included Gambler's Chest, did it not? The Expansion of Death 2? I can't remember now.
I don't think it did. I think there was one pledge level that had Campaigns of Death, all the expansions, and Gambler's Chest. I think just the expansions didn't include Gambler's Chest.
I think there was a Blackest bundle, and then there was Campaigns of Death 2, or Expansions of Death 2. Yeah, it's a tough question. I don't know if you're feeling like you're missing out. I don't think it'd be worth chasing down Gambler's Chest if you're looking at some of Wave 4 and only buying some of it. But if you're buying all of Wave 4, as I said, I think Gambler's Chest is the best one to get if you're willing to spend that amount of money. But if you're just going to spend pay 1 or 2, maybe you really like Kingdom Death, and you're I'm just going to buy 1 or 2 expansions, I would not recommend Gambler's Chest for that. But if you're willing to spend the $400 on it, it's hard. It's hard to say. I think, yeah, it's just hard to say. There's other questions we'll get to at the end, so that relate more to this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about everything in Gambler's Chess, and then I've asked the community for questions that they want, and those are going to be at the timestamp shown here, where you can go if you just want to hear more community stuff. But if you're looking just for those answers from all the community questions, go to that part now. But from right now, we're going to talk about each individual thing and how the Gambler's Chess actually works, and then I think we'll be better prepared to answer that question.
Yep.
So to begin, Gambler's Chess isn't just new things. It is all new stuff, but it does update core itself. It also updates just randomly Flower Knight. I have no idea. I've looked at those 2 cards. Definitely don't chase Gambler's Chess if you just want to update your Flower Knight.
Absolutely not.
But Gambler's Chess has core game updates. So these core game updates, I've got them all listed here. Some of them are very minor. Some of them are very impactful and very neat and really good for the game. The minor ones are Synchronic Attacks, which are neat. Synchronic Attacks are just a new move and attack, or like a range attack. They're just new variables that all the monsters use. I think all of them do it except for Bone Eaters. I think pretty much all of them in Gambler's Chess have it. I could see that being something that even Wave 4 have. Synchronic Attacks is definitely, probably not going to be limited to Gambler's Chess. I think Wave 4 stuff will have it. Vibration Damage, again, very neat. Just a different type of modified damage. Repeat AI cards, very neat. They're kind of like duration cards, but handled differently. Compulsive reactions, or just reactions that can't be canceled for any reason. They're neat. Then we have excluded cards. Some things in Gambler's Chess, they used to do the banners. Current expansions for Kingdom of Death have those banners. The top left has the banners modified to show you what they are, and I think Core has the little wrapped fist to show that it's from Core. The excluded cards are neat because they're ways of modifying. Like the Settlement Event deck currently has the most excluded cards. They're just neat. They're just things that are added at different times, which is always interesting. Then you have Patterns and Indomitable Resources. These are the 2 biggest ones that will be core going forward. It does appear that even Wave 4 includes Patterns. Patterns are just now a regular thing. They've been in white boxes. These are just the recipe cards. They're not like I know current Patterns, seed patterns are different. We'll talk about those, but these are just regular patterns. They're basically just a card that gets rid of what Gigalion did. Gigalion basically added this little settlement location, which was totally unnecessary. Patterns just do that now. And then Indomitable Resources are level 3 rewards that you get for fighting. Well, any monster level 3 or any monster with an Indomitable trait will have Indomitable Resources, presumably going forward. All the ones in the chest do. The chest even added some to Phoenix. So, how do you guys feel about regular Patterns and Indomitable, or any of those other things I mentioned? Like I said, I pretty much explained what they are now.
Yeah.
But
Indomitable Patterns and Indomitable Resources were my big surprise hit from the chest. They seemed like kind of innocuous and kind of just a thing that was there, but I love them. They play great. Because how they work is when you defeat a monster that has the Indomitable trait, which normally they get it when they're level 3, you get one of their Indomitable resources, which will normally grant you an Indomitable resource pattern, which is a special fancy piece of gear you can craft using that resource you just got. It's super cool. It's super fun to kill a level 3 Crimson Croc, a monster that appears very early in the timeline, and you kind of get a spin of that roulette wheel, and you get to see what really cool high-level, strong gear you're able to make with it. They're awesome.
Yeah, I in general, patterns and Indomitable patterns, etc. We saw some variations of those in white boxes, but yeah, they felt a lot more incorporated, and some of the patterns in particular from the indomitable resources of the Phoenix, really feel quite impactful on that design in general. So I think, that they're a really big win. All of the other little updates to the core game didn't feel tacked on. They felt like they belonged. I think they
Oh,
also
yeah.
added range attacks
Yeah.
into there as well. So really big fan of all those changes.
Yeah, I think Indomitable is the most elegant, like, low impact. It's just so good. Indomitable, I love Indomitable Research. They're just so good. They're much better than.
It felt like it should have always been there.
Yeah, they're much better than like strange resources, because strange resources you gotta sometimes do very awkward things for. At least Indomitable. I'm not a huge fan of always like anything that pushes the fact that I really want Cat Eye Circlet, or I really don't want to use devastating weapons because I don't want to kill it too fast, because I want to hunt for a certain AI card trait to come out. Just so, for example, the white box of Aya, I don't want to talk too much about Aya, but the white box of Aya, the way it did it, would be so much more elegant had it just done Indomitable. That's the best way I could possibly explain how good Indomitable resources feel when you look at the alternative of Death Inheritor Aya. Let's talk about this other core game update. I didn't include the node system. Gameless Chess does talk about the node system, but Gameless Chess isn't really meant to use the node system. It's Campaigns of Death is when we'll really get that. But we can talk about that when we talk about the monsters. But the node system's there. It's basically just a outline. It's very bare bones. I wouldn't even say that Gambler's Chest is really fully introducing it. So, I mean, would either of you disagree?
Kind of
No.
Yeah. The other one is the pillar system. This one is interesting. This seems more like a formality to inform the players of how complex these systems are or can be. These seem very arbitrary, in my opinion. The numbers that were given to them, they're not really that reflective of what is actually complex, but perhaps in the future. And there's no real like thing where it says like we recommend you not use more than 5 points, because they get point values to everything, and then people the Dreamkeeper just uses them all anyway. But I don't know. The pillar system exists.
Yeah, because I do remember the 5 pillar thing you mentioned. I think that was mentioned in like an earlier Kickstarter update at some time in the past.
No, it's in the book.
Oh, go ahead.
It is in the book. It is in the Game of Chess book. It's page something.
Oh, that's funny.
Here, I have them written here. So, Arc Survivors are 3 points. Encounters are 2. The points represent the complexity. So, Arc Survivors are a 3. Encounters are a 2. Scouts, Seed Patterns, Wanderers, and Character Cards are all a 1.
Yeah. So it's to me it almost kind of reads as either something that is going to be much more expanded and described on in Campaigns of Death, or it is kind of a remnant of maybe some like previous like system ideas or something like that, just because it's there and I don't really see why it's there. But so it would make sense to me that's like, oh, in the past, like, oh, it had, these explanations for this rules, but like the design moved away from there, but the pillar numbers just kind of stayed there as development continued.
Yeah, if it doesn't get incorporated in Campaigns of Death, I'd be very surprised. I think that'll be where it'll give you ways to create your own campaigns, and the complexity that you have as a result of that. You can use those pillars as a guideline, but they didn't feel super relevant to me, and I probably would have counted Ark Survivors as a 5.
Yeah,
3. So
yeah. I mean, if characters are a 1, that is literally just drawing a card. So.
Yeah, like 5 or 6 sounds more accurate for.
It's fine.
It's a linear scale. Maybe it's not a linear one.
Yeah.
fair.
I don't know. They're here. I talked about them because they're in the rulebook, so we talked about them. Now okay, here we go. Those are all the core game updates, or seemingly. We can talk about Phoenix before we move on. I don't know if Phoenix... I don't feel that Phoenix is like a didn't really get like a gambler's chest upgrade. I mean, they did because they got indomitable resources and stuff, and they got some new gear from those resources. But other than that, Phoenix kind of plays exactly the same. I don't think there's anything else that was added. They didn't get the new intro event, nothing else.
Yeah, they got some of the stuff like a meal gear and a scout report. A little bit of kind of refurbishing, but not a very comprehensive one.
The only thing that probably I observed with the Phoenix was philosophies had a slightly different feeling around when you gain Hunt XP. It didn't necessarily feel like as bad a thing as it did when you're chasing weapon proficiencies and age milestones. So didn't feel quite as punishing.
It felt a lot better there. It still usually wasn't great, but it's like, okay, I get a little bit of a consolation prize.
Yeah. I was just more so talking... we're going to move to Arc Survivors here in a sec, but I was more so talking like... Did you think... Oh, I guess we'll include this here too. Gambler's Chest also includes, as Tennis mentioned, Scout Discoveries for White Lion and for Lope. But... and some seed patterns. No indomitable resources though. I don't if you're basically the best way to say this, and you can disagree if you want. If you're looking to upgrade core using Gambler's Chest because you think that all the systems will be there for the core game, the core stuff, they're not. They are, but they're not. It's a very odd place that White Lion and Lope find themselves in, because there's also nothing for Butcher except for the Butcher mask, I guess, kind of, and there's really nothing for. I don't consider Butcher Mask a spoiler because it was shown in like very early Kickstarter updates, and there's some stuff for Kingsman that got updated, but there's nothing for Watcher. Yeah, it's a very mixed bag. How do you feel about using Gambler's Chest to actually update core?
It doesn't really touch or address like literal like core monsters or specific things like that. It does lead to a very different play experience if you use the new systems and stuff, because you're adding in a lot, but in terms of like actual refinements or refurbishments to like core monsters or locations or stuff, it doesn't really touch them. Some kind of like token ones. Maybe COD will do some more stuff with it, or maybe it won't. But yeah.
Having played People of the Lantern, it didn't feel dramatically different with the the core components of that. So yeah, very little change to the core box.
All right, yeah, I agree. So that might help with the question we first tried to answer about FOMO. I don't think Gambler's Chest really touches too much yet on stuff outside of itself. So I don't think you really need to pick it up, maybe if you're looking to complete other things. But for this one system, now we're going to talk about it as spoiler-free as we possibly can. We will jump into what's probably the biggest change to Kingdom Death going forward, and that is Arc Survivors. Arc Survivors are so big and so massive that they themselves include subsystems.
Yeah, a little bit.
So Arc Survivors are a thing. They're just different. They have different stats. They're different. They act differently than... I don't even know how to approach this. This is a big one. That's why I wanted to talk about this one first. Arc Survivors themselves do have rules that are just Arc Survivors specific, but then Arc Survivors also have the philosophy system, the knowledge system, and the collective cognition are all tied to Arc Survivors, and there doesn't appear to be any way to use these systems without Arc Survivors, which I was kind of surprised by, because the original pitches and stuff for the Kickstarter and everything mentioned like the food innovation tree. All that has been tied up into the collective cognition. So let's talk. How do you guys want to start this one? The survivors themselves. Should we talk knowledges? Should we talk philosophies? Or should we talk collective cognition?
I think collective cognition's probably the best place to start because
it's kind of the easiest.
Yeah, it's the easiest. You go, Tennis.
Yeah, so collective cognition is one of the main ways that you progress kind of arc survivors, well, their cognition. How it works is the first time you defeat a level 1 version of a monster, you get 1 collective cognition point. The first 2 times you beat a level 2, you get 2 points. The first 3 times you beat a level 3, you get 3 points. And these points do just 2 things. You will draw collective cognition cards at certain CC milestones, which will give you things like some new monster knowledges or some different abilities and innovations, as well as access to higher tiers of philosophies. And the amount of collective cognition you have can also unlock modifications to philosophies. Like as you rank through a philosophy, there will be different roll results or other things, and if you have enough CC, you get a good thing.
Or a bad thing.
Yeah.
Normally not a bad thing. A bad thing in a very few specific times, I think. As I'm trying to remember all of the CC milestones. Sometimes it's bad. Normally it's not. And yeah, that is one part of it.
All right, so let's talk collective cognition quickly. How do you guys feel about collective cognition? Quickly, for me, I think it changes the way in which you hunt. Other than that, it's not very impactful, in my opinion. I think it pushes risk reward. It kind of makes you feel like you should be hunting stuff faster than you should, and it kind of makes you play more risky. But then it doesn't really fix the fact that if you don't do collective cognition, you can kind of still just fight level 1s and then burn through the level 3s.
Yeah, I find it a very effective carrot because my gamer lizard brain really likes when the number goes up. So I really want to hunt the higher level things so that I make the number go up more faster.
It's the only thing that incentivizes you to hunt higher level monsters in the early game. In a normal campaign, there is no value in doing so. You can get an extra 2 resources, woo! But in this, it really pushes the new system in an interesting direction. As Tennis said, you unlock different abilities throughout the philosophies because your collective cognition is higher. It also has an impact on some of the Ark Survivor hunt events, etc.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's really quite impactful, in how you approach hunting in general. And I've always felt that Kingdom Death's biggest weakness was that there was no incentive to put yourself at risk.
And now there is. It's like massive.
Now there is.
You really want to.
It's a huge shift, and I think it's probably one of the things that I most appreciate about Ark Survivors is that it makes me want to run that line, that razor's edge of, well, shit, I could die here. But I really want that extra collective cognition, so I like it.
Yeah, that's great.
I agree. Again, we're going to do a spoiler video. So let's talk. Oh man. Let's do Ark Survivors themselves quick before we do the knowledges and philosophies. So Ark Survivors themselves have new stats to them. They're just different than regular survivors, and these new stats are, Lumi is just a new thing. Like it's just a new currency. Other than that, Lumi's not really an attribute. You can gain it, you can spend it. It's kind of like survival. It's not really something. So, but the other 2 actually are attributes, things that will affect your dice rolls and things. Which are, first is Torment, which in I want to make sure I say this right because it's backwards. As Torment increases, it subtracts from your die rolls for brain trauma.
Yep.
And then ass pressure is the same, but for survival. No, for severe injuries. My bad.
Take your time.
Yeah, no. So as you're positively going up in these numbers, you're actually going. It then subtracts from your roll. So that's what they do, and those are actual attributes that can be affected. Do have tokens and stuff. It's just something you have to remember that even though you're gaining positives of it, it's actually being subtracted from the dice. So that, and then the other major thing with Ark Survivors is Vaultless, which is we're not going to spoil about all Vaultless and everything, but it is the mechanic that Ark Survivors have a hard time getting fighting arts. I'm just going to say it like that without spoiling it. And it's that the mechanic is called Vaultless. And that is a unique thing to Ark Survivors themselves. So, am I leaving anything out on Ark Survivors themselves?
No, but not before we go into philosophies and stuff. It's the other things are kind of basic. Ark Survivors get fighting arts way, way less commonly than the normal survivors, like the Steam of the Chance. And yeah, without going too much into it, Vaultless means that it is less reliable and more risky to even try getting fighting arts. Although they still can get secret fighting arts.
We'll do the sport. We'll talk about Vaultless and stuff. Basically, you're just going to be using fighting arts less.
Yeah. I didn't find systemic pressure or torment to be very impactful attributes. Cause like I'm already playing to try and not get severe injuries and brain trauma, so it's like, oh hey, it's worse now. Let's keep doing what I'm doing and try to not get hurt like that.
It's a win. It's a win more. If you're already comfortable in avoiding injuries or brain trauma, then there's no real change. But if you're a person who likes to play collective toil for some reason, hey brah, then maybe torment has a little bit more of an impact.
Yes. Well, actually, okay. Yeah, Tennis and I have an agreement about Sept Darkness and stuff, but we're going to say that for spoilers. Yeah, Ark Survivors are just here's the best thing I think
makes Sept Darkness much worse.
Okay, we're going to do a spoiler video as well. But here's the thing that I like about Ark Survivors. And this is one of the reasons I think this is good for them to be a separate thing. And it wasn't something I noticed right away because, it helps to suck. You notice some things more. It's nice to have skill issues because then as you keep going through the lower levels and you figure stuff out. I think the Ark Survivors are great because it doesn't intrinsically tie philosophies and knowledge and collective cognition to Ark Survivors. It just ties them to a survivor type, which aren't base survivors from People of the Lantern. So, Ark Survivors are just a name that you could give to anything that would also have Torment and Lumi. So, I think it's good because then you could see other campaigns use something that aren't Ark Survivors, but can use the system, which I think is good. Because like I said, these knowledges don't specifically say Ark Survivors. I know Gambler does in the book, but that's okay. You could get around that with other cores. But I think that's why they exist. They seem like such a light thing, but I think they're good that they are called out differently.
Gotcha.
Which one? All right, Deno, you could pick this one. Do you want to do philosophies or knowledges first? I think they're equivalent to talk about.
They're kind of the same thing.
Yeah, they're the same thing. Philosophies, we'll go with philosophies. They're a replacement for the age mechanic, and they generate a story, a concept that you're not just individual survivors. It feels much more like your settlement is experiencing the whole story along the way, and it's tied to collective cognition in some ways, as Tennis said. But it's also tied to just progressing up your Hunt XP. So they're amazing, incredible. I want 50 more of them. I want 50 more of them now. I want one for barbarianism. I want one for every single thing under the sun. They're amazing. The emergent storytelling that comes out of them is great. There's
Yeah.
little bits and pieces of lore that come out through those experiences, which is fascinating.
Yeah, just the writing and the philosophical musing of these is good
Mm,
enough that I just read them to my partner who doesn't play
mm,
Kingdom Death or board games, and she's like, "Wow, this is great."
mm. Yeah, they really feel like an amazing storytelling addition to the game, and for a game that's probably you would say light on story but heavy on heavy on theme and heavy on
Hmm.
subtext. These add so much to that, and
Yeah.
I found myself fascinated by all of the stories. So they tie into knowledges in a huge way. I'll let Tennis talk about knowledges.
Yeah. So, Ark survivors don't have fighting arts, or well, they don't mainly have fighting arts. Instead, what the big thing they have is they have knowledge. And so a given settlement will have its knowledge deck, which is unlike your fighting arts deck in that it starts out with almost nothing in it. As survivors progress through their philosophies, they will learn new knowledges, new abilities, and whenever a survivor gets one of these knowledges, it goes into your settlement's knowledge deck. So each time as you're going through your settlement, you're going to kind of have a pretty custom and unique knowledge deck, and there will be ways for other survivors to learn these knowledges or for you to pass them down. So it is a really big, cool thing like that. And there are some knowledges that are kind of like just similar to what fighting arts are. There's like some clear, like, oh, hey, this is that fighting art. This is ambidextrous. Um, but they also go way harder. Um, Knowledges are tend to be a lot more impactful and wild than fighting arts, and they're awesome. And one of the real key things about knowledges, and one of the things I really love that they bring to the game from a moment to moment standpoint, is that many knowledges will have different levels. You start with the knowledge at level 1, and you need to rank it up to level 2 or to level 3. And to do so, you need to obtain observations on that knowledge, which each knowledge will have a different way for you to get observations and level it up. And this gives the really cool gameplay experience of having these little sub goals or these little extra things that you do to try and upgrade your knowledge. And it can be really very funny because sometimes you do very silly things in order to level up the knowledge. You go really out of your way, and it's awesome.
It actually really is fantastic because sometimes you reach a point in Kingdom Death where you're like, okay, the settlement phase is where I get to make all my really cool decisions. The fighting, it's pretty straightforward. I do X, Y, Z. But all of a sudden, you've got this new thing in there where you're like, okay, I would really like to get a severe injury on this guy.
Yeah.
and then that completely changes the way you think about the fight. It just adds so much more layers into the decision making in all aspects of the game, and that's great. Knowledges themselves, the thing I like most about them is, first of all, they're curatable. You get to allow your whole settlement to have, a tendency towards this type of knowledge. You can pass those knowledges down through generations, which can make, can actually shape the way your entire settlement acts and operates, which is, again, a fundamental shift in fighting arts land. You would just be drawing a fighting art and hoping that you got one that meshed up with some of the other ones that you had. Now, knowledges allow you to really focus your activities, focus the way you're constructing your settlement, your survivors. It's a really, really engaging way of playing the game.
And also, the other really cool thing about knowledge cards is that they have really good art on them, and the art on it will change as you level them up. Like, it's usually pretty subtle, but not always.
Yeah.
And yeah, some it's like, oh god, which is, it just makes them feel so good because sometimes you're like, oh boy, I'm excited to level this up and see what the art on the next level is. And then the final level of knowledge will be a full card art, which is also super cool.
The art is incredible in the Gambler's Chess across the entire product. The quality of the cards, the quality of the artwork, it's a a level up on Kingdom Death, which was already at a very high level. So, if you like art, big tick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in full agreement. Knowledges, philosophies, arc survivors, they are outstanding. They're the biggest thing the chest has to offer, and I don't foresee a world in which they don't ripple into almost every release going forward. Not white. I mean, obviously white boxes. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about big expansions. I don't know if we will never see expansions that don't include knowledges anymore. Philosophies, I don't know. It doesn't look like Black Knight has any. But I would not be surprised if we're getting CC stuff. We know we're getting it for Black Knight. We know we're getting knowledges in Black Knight. So this is the one thing that I think will now ripple to the future of Kingdom Death for sure, forever. They are
Go back to one of your
outstanding.
questions, brah. To go back to one of your questions, if you were going to buy the chest for one expansion component and one thing only, Ark Survivors would be it. And I would probably be able to make a strong case that it is worth it for that alone because of how much it changes the game. So, yeah, take that with a grain of salt. But Ark Survivors could be worth $400.
Ooh.
I would say arcs, like, if you like minis, Arc Survivors plus the minis, I would say, like, okay, like, it's this... That's not, like, an amazing value proposition, but I'd say, like, okay, yeah, like, just for, like, those things, if you like those, like, yeah, that works.
I don't know if it's worth 400 just for Ark Survivors. I'd have to think about it. I don't know if the person exists out there. I don't know if there's anybody who's playing Kingdom Death that also doesn't want all the other monsters. If that person exists out there who only wants to buy Gambler's Chest for the Ark Survivors themselves, I would probably be iffy on it, and I would say you probably want to try to create value in other ways from this big chest. But if that person exists out there, that person, I don't know. I don't know what I'd sell to you. I don't know what I'd say to you.
You could probably, like, if you're really that crazy person, you can probably, like, sell a lot of the minis if you want to piecemeal it to other people.
Yeah, I would try to get value out of the other stuff. I'd try to get money back from it. I don't know if the Arc Survivors are worth 400, but I agree. If you could find someone who wanted your minis and wanted everything else in there, then maybe if you could wreck 50% of it, then I probably would say, yeah, Arc Survivors are worth that.
Yeah. And one of the really amazing things Arc Survivors with philosophies and knowledges do in general is that they really just give your settlement such an amazing sense and progression of itself.
Yeah.
Because before in kind of Kingdom Death, you would kind of level up your entire settlement as a whole, really only mostly with gear. There'd be a little bit of, oh, hey, we could get some innovations. Yeah,
Weapon
masteries, weapons and masteries, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Ark Survivors and spoilers. I've got a lot of other things to say about that. I'm pretty sure I've expressed my opinion about the power that I feel is actually in the intimacy table. But, yeah, we'll talk more about that spoilers. Because if we start talking about all that stuff and how it actually changes everything and weapon mastery, because all that stuff is completely different, so
Gotcha.
we'll talk about it. Let's go to some simpler stuff to just wind down on the thought and the collective brain power. Let's quickly just talk about seed patterns. These have already been introduced in white boxes all over. I think there's only like one rule that's changed. Other than that, these are exactly as you've seen them in white boxes for the past 4 years. I'll quickly explain them, or maybe 3 years. When was it 10 years anniversary came out? 4 years? I think it was almost 4 years ago, yeah. But anyway,
Yes.
seed patterns are, I guess, introduced in Gambler's Chest officially, but if you're not talking about white boxes. And seed patterns are basically just a more involved recipe that require actions, kind of. So a regular recipe, when you go to some location, you need stuff from the monster. And then maybe you'll need to spend an endeavor. Maybe you'll need to have like an innovation locked. Some of them require heat. Some of them require leather. Some of them you have to do. Maybe you have to get iron from scrap smelting. Maybe you need maybe you need pictographs. This is just an extra layer. So there's 2 layers for seed patterns. One, it now intrinsically ties some gear to the difficulty of the monster. We won't talk about how and all that. We'll talk about that in spoilers, but some gear is intrinsically locked now to a monster's difficulty or node. And then the other one is, these are just basically story elements to make crafting more thematic. And I really enjoy seed patterns, and I enjoy how they play out. We'll talk about their place in spoilers, but I think seed patterns are great. So what do you guys think about seed patterns?
I was a bit skeptical, but because a lot of the kind of similar seed patterns we've seen in like white boxes and stuff are a little more, they're kind of extra. They're, they're usually very like splashy, crazy gear, but you have to jump through crazy hoops to build them.
Well,
so, it's like kind of
crazy hoops is a bit much. you might need like a broken arm or something.
Yeah, well, there were a decent amount that were not like super practical.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed with the collection of seed patterns in the chest. There seemed to be a good concentration of ones that are very reasonable to craft pretty early, which means it's pretty likely that, you do randomly get them. It seems decently likely that early on you'll randomly get a few that you're like, oh, hey, I can like make these like soon. I'm going to try and do that. I found they played pretty well.
I was exactly the same as you. I initially felt, this is going to be too random. The first draw I got was one that I'm never going to be able to make until Lantern Year 25. So, this isn't going to be a great system. But you tend to draw a larger number of them in the early to mid game. And so, by virtue of that, that's about when you get to craft a couple of them. And the majority of them feel like they're about at that power level. And so, in practice, it actually ended up being really fun to have something to be like, oh, okay, I really need to hunt this level 3 monster so that I can get, this particular piece of equipment to allow me to craft this seed pattern. And they were fun. They shaped, some survivor builds, and I ended up being a really big fan. I would include seed patterns in every campaign now because they're low impact, but help that mid game feel a little bit more exciting as some goals to chase after.
Yeah, they're absolutely like the mid-game thing, and they fit in very well.
I would even say that, as you guys was talking about collective cognition being the carrot on the stick, I found seed patterns as being a much more bigger carrot on the stick. Like, I felt that was my carrot more so than CC.
I can understand that. It does kind of influence a bit of like what you want to go for, because you're like, well, I want to build this specific seed pattern, so I need to go hunt this thing.
Yep, of this specific node. Like at this, seed patterns are good. We're gonna be spoiler free here.
Yep.
But let's talk about encounters. All right, Deno, you want to introduce encounters?
They're actually similar to seed patterns. I felt they were going to be pretty random, and they were. The first campaign, I didn't get to experience an encounter until Lantern Year 21.
Yep.
And they didn't pose much of a challenge at that point. But in the third campaign, I experienced them at Lantern Year 3, and they were a very scary proposition. When they're good, they're really, really, really good. And they add a lot of tension to the hunt phase, which is probably not something you can... Well, I mean, unless you're Bra and you draw Harvester 4 times a campaign.
Yeah.
But there's some tension there, which I really enjoyed. The randomness is the downside, and there's the obvious setup, which takes probably more time than the actual encounter can sometimes.
Yes. Okay. Here's one thing.
Yep.
We're going to talk about this. This is something that I've noticed with these encounters, even like myself. The most noticeable thing, and I think encounters are great. I think the way they handled the facing and the opportunity cards and all that stuff, we'll talk about it briefly, not too much spoilers, but I know after like the third time fighting them, and the later they get, as Deno said, exactly, when the later you get in the campaign, the less impactful they even are. That setup time is really a downer for me. I think there's probably a better way of doing it, but the setup time for me was noticeable.
I think the Bone Eaters are kind of like explicitly bad for setup time because for their showdown, you need to set up this terrain that's like 8 or 10 pieces.
Yeah.
Honestly, my biggest negative about the encounters is, or at least the Bone Eaters, the setup and physical stuff of them is the least pleasant part. But in terms of like gameplay experience, they're kind of cool.
I think I noticed it. The time that I noticed it was when I killed them faster than I could set up the board.
Yeah.
Did that happen to either of you?
Most showdowns, but the level 4 is a vastly different experience, and the only change you would need to make for encounters to be an absolute win is just you don't have any terrain on that board. Just put the board down, put them down, and go. That'd be it. Getting 15 different fingers in the right spot took forever.
Yeah. Especially maybe if they didn't go first. Positive, but
yeah. One specific positive I do want to say about Bone Eaters is I am very impressed at how much flavor the designers managed to pack into a very small package. You don't see a lot of like the Bone Eaters cards in any given fight, but man, they have so much going on, so much theme, so much flavor, arguably some sass, and that part is really awesome.
Yes, I know the one thing again because this is mostly here with the spoiler-free one. I'm hoping mostly to rather not, because I'm sure over the year everybody who's been Kingdom Death are following it. You've had 7 years to look at these Kickstarter updates, or everybody's been really wondering about Gambler's Chest, and I know for many years that was always a thing. Even myself 4 years ago, I always said, "Man, I hope they can nail the setup time." And that's it. I just wanted to confirm that is a real fear. It didn't improve. It is the downer. But as Tina said, I actually really do like encounters, and I like the system quite a bit. I wish the cards weren't mini cards. That kind of seems arbitrary, but they are. I hate those mini cards.
There's not a good place to put them in the box.
Yeah, they don't fit with, but whatever. That's not a reflection on the system. That's just I don't know why those cards are mini. I like the initiative. I thought that was neat. I like the fact that they appear on the hunt because the hunt phase almost went unchanged. Surprisingly, we'll talk about the next. We'll talk about the next one you'd think would impact the hunt, but doesn't really. We'll talk about them next. But I really liked it. I love here's the rewards for them, and your time investment is worth it. And that was the second biggest thing. It was always for me. It was the setup, and then originally when they were pitched, it was like the reward is surviving, and I was like, ugh.
And also like we have kind of been complaining about like, oh, the setup time is so bad, but you only do fight them a small amount of times through the entire campaign.
Correct.
They don't really bog down the pacing overall very much. It's just like in the moment, like that setup is kind of annoying. Because there have been a lot of people who are like worried about like, oh gosh, are these encounters just going to make the campaigns like take like way longer? And like, no, it doesn't.
It doesn't. I should. What's clear? Let's see if we can give a time thing. I think if you get good at it.
They're 15 minutes from setup to finish to back into the hunt. Maximum.
That's what I would say. The first, if you get them really early, maybe you're looking at 25 minutes when you might not like. If you got them, I feel bad for today. I think you got it before you had Surge, right? That's going to be rough.
Have Surge.
Yeah,
it was very punishing. Yeah.
So your time will be different, but I agree. It's going to be 15 to 20 minutes to set up to tear down, and at least it's rewarding. Oh my gosh, it's so rewarding. We're not going to talk about spoilers, but it is rewarding, and the rewards are unique, and some of the rewards are so cool. There's one specifically that
Yep.
is really good. There's two specifically, but I mean, one's just win more, but the other one is really cool, depending on your philosophy types. The one, yeah, we'll talk about the spoiler, but so best spoiler free. It sucks you get to set them up, but they're worth setting up. I like them.
They're cool. They have lots of personality.
Yeah.
It's a fun mini.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about the other thing that you'd think about would affect the hunt, but doesn't really, which is scouts. Scouts have their hands all over everything.
They're interesting. What do you think about the scouts, everyone?
They're my least favorite thing in the entire Gamblers Chest by a large margin.
Let's explain that. Yeah, I think we're not going to talk spoilers about scouts, but scouts are tied to the CC. No, they're not tied to CC.
They're not.
But they are tied to monsters specifically, so they will have monster-specific stuff. They do update White Lion and Lope, which is great. They do update Butcher, which is good. There's some stuff that you can do with them. And then also all the Gamblers Chest monsters will have stuff that they affect. They also have Scout-specific gear, which is interesting. Very low impact and very specific in what it does. Sometimes over-specific, sometimes
Except
confusingly specific. But then they give you a 5th survivor, so they are on the board. The other thing they do is they have their own small hunt table, which is cool. There's only 10 of them, but it's cool. They have their own hunt table. And then finally, they have their own location with their own gear. And their gear, they have their own unique gear grid, which is smaller because they're carrying the pack. And then you get the Death Pact innovation, which makes it so you can no longer run from battles, which is a huge change. You cannot do it. You have to fight to the death, or the scout will flee after the survivors die. But you're there. You have a Death Pact you've now signed, and then your gear no longer returns to the settlement if it's a full party wipe. It doesn't matter if the scout's dead. It's just a full party wipe. So that's... did I miss anything on scouts? I don't think so.
No, that's it.
Scouts are a huge mix. Yep. All right. You talk about scouts.
Deno, what do you think? Because you seem to be very passionate on it's your least favorite thing. I might agree, but I feel like you're more certain about it than I am.
So, when it boils down to it, right? I think Kingdom Death is not a complicated game. That once you've played through it, you know it's. I wouldn't say it's solvable, but there's definitely paths you can take that reduce your risk. And you know, getting to the end of a campaign is an achievement. Scouts facilitate that significantly easier and maximize your power level while you're doing so. In every case, but for a party wipe.
There we go. Yep.
How many party wipes have you had in the last few years? I'm not going to ask you, brah, because you roll like shit. But Tennis, how many times have you had a party wipe?
I don't.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
So that's that's it in a nutshell, right? You just, if you aren't going to party wipe, then all scouts are doing is turbocharging your settlement's power level by giving you things like scout discoveries, by giving you a 5th survivor on the hunt that allows you to gain up weapon proficiencies, to gain up philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and it feels very, very, very much like it levels up your power more than it should.
Yeah,
and then the lantern's crazy.
Oh, that lantern. Yeah. I found the system as a whole kind of unfocused in that I'm not sure what its design intention is meant to be.
Oh, that I couldn't agree with more.
Yeah, which is not the norm for the chest systems. that is kind of one of the big reasons I adore Arc Survivors and Philosophies, in that I find that their design ethos, their reason for existing, is very clear. They know why they're there, and they do their job perfect. I'm not certain why Scouts exist. It is also kind of funny that way back when, in their original pitch, they were more pitched as like, oh, like, you know, they're scouting during the hunt phase. They retrieve your gear like in the showdown phase. But in their current incarnation, they interact with the hunt phase probably the least, actually.
Yeah, we were hinting with that for encounters.
Yeah. So they're interesting. They are probably the only system in the chest that I could see, like, I'm not going to include that in a campaign every now and then.
I didn't include them in my People of the Lantern campaign, and I felt very good about it. It made drawing a settlement event a fearful proposition once again, which it didn't feel at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Scout hunt events are some of the most fun and interesting hunt events that have been added.
They actually
Unless you roll like shit.
Yeah. But there's some really cool ones in there. Arc Survivor hunt events are less exciting. They're usually reliant on do you have XYZ philosophy, but
which when you do, they're cool, but sometimes you don't, and you're like, okay, that was nothing.
But I never rolled a Scout one, and I was like, oh, that's just a sort of a dead event. They were always fun. So I will include them in some campaigns, but if I am wanting to feel challenged and really feel that tension that KDM is good for, they won't make it into my campaigns.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I think they went through the most development waffling. That's what I think it feels like. Even from the way the rules were written about them, you could see remnants of things that weren't fixed in the rules, and now there's been errata. I think there's a lot of waffling. I think it was going to be more punishing. If the Scout would have died, I think he would have lost gear of the other dead survivors. But that looks like that has been changed. And now, with that change, I agree with everyone. I don't see the threat at all. Now, they're just a big boon. Unless you roll like shit. But no one rolls on par with me at all. So,
yeah.
My Scouts have died to Scout Hunt events twice. And have died to Scout Discoveries.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But yeah, let's talk about another thing that is very little impact, high amount of dev time. Let's talk about Luck, the Wanderer. Dennis, I think you have strong opinions about Luck.
I do not have very bad opinions about Luck. Luck is the Wanderer included in the chest. Wanderers are survivors who come into your settlement from outside. And they have their own kind of story and motivations and things like that. Luck specifically, he exists and he's like kind of cool. His story is neat. I feel like Wanderers that come in at a year earlier than Lantern Year 23 will be cooler. I also feel that Luck is probably more fun in a non-Dreamkeepers campaign. But the story's cool. He's a cool mini. He has some cool stuff going on. They're kind of fine. They're pretty low impact.
Feels like a placeholder for future Wanderers. You know, let's just see how the system works. And
it feels a little like that.
Yeah, if it comes out Lantern Year 8 or 9, I'd be much more engaged. By that
think
time,
then it's going to be like great.
Yeah. 23, I was like, whatever, mate. I don't care. Just I'm going to fight the butcher.
Your stats are really bad compared to everyone else.
Just sit at home, mate. Just sit at home.
I think we can't really talk about Luck without talking about spoilers. But I will agree, Luck 100% feels like the placeholder. Even from his abilities, I can tell that he's kind of a placeholder. But he feels like just a test run. I think there'll be better ones in the future. I think for what it is...
Wanderers will be cool. I think they'll be good.
I think they can be. Yes, they got to come in earlier. They got to come in earlier.
Well, I think you probably could have a late Wanderer. I just think luck is more safely tuned than I think you could get away with, but that's getting into more specifics.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's everything non-monster related. So let's talk about the new monsters. And we're going to start with the strongest monster, in my opinion, the best monster in the Gambler's Chest. Easily, in my opinion, let's talk about Crimson Croc. Tennis, you want to talk about Crimson Croc?
Yeah. Deno, do you think the Crimson Croc is the best designed monster in all of KDM?
I think the Dung Beetle Knight might hold that title.
That's fair. I'm not sure if I would give that accolade to the Croc either, but I think
it's in the conversation.
Absolutely.
What do you think? It's the best one in the chest?
I don't think it's the best one in the chest, but I think it's very close. Yep.
Yeah. The Crimson Croc, it is wonderful. I probably couldn't say enough good things about it. It is a wonderful Node 1 quarry. Its theme and its sass are amazing. Like, the elegance in its mechanical design at, like, every level, like showdown and gear and all that stuff, kind of just speaks for itself. It's amazing. Easily the best Node 1 quarry. I love it. I don't have anything else to say.
I agree. The gear is fun and interesting and levels up reasonably well throughout the game. The showdown's great fun, and there's progressively harder challenges as you go up in levels. It's just a great fight, and yeah, anytime a monster's going to wink at you, it's a straight winner.
One other thing I do want to say about the Croc, and this holds for a good number of the Gambler's Chest monsters, but I won't get into explicit details, but I need to say this. Its trap is wonderful, and trap design for Gambler's Chest monsters is notably ahead. They are a lot more interesting than, I hit you hard.
I think we can just say that all the Gambler's Chest monsters have very strong mechanics to them that really, I think all of them, that really expand in every direction which Kingdom Death can go.
Yep.
I think that's fair to say about literally every single one. I agree with both of you. I think Croc's the best thing in Gambler's Chest. I'm surprised. Pretty much, I agree with both of you for everything you said about how it does everything. I'm surprised not. So, what do you? The thing I think very highly of for Croc is the way it handles level 1 and level 2. Like the fact that you can hunt a level 2 actually within the first 5 years for your Node 1, I think is great. That's something you can't say about Gorm and Lion. You're not gonna be able to fight those pre-butchered level 2s. You couldn't even think about it with Gorm and Lion. I think the level 2 is good. I think it's a very good challenge. I think just looking at the data, the basic card, right? When you look at it's such an outside the box thinking, because I think it's tough. Again, I don't have the card in front of me, but I'm pretty sure its toughness is 7 for level 1, then 9, and then it's just 16 or 15. It's not afraid. All the other ones, when you look at it, it's like a clearly, well, we'll just do this because it should be 8, 12, 14. Math, that's good, right? It's just, this feels like a very knowingly good thing to put its toughness lower at level 2. I love the fact that level 2 is for Node 1, to be able to fight level 2 so early. I think that's so cool. I hope all monsters for Node 1 specifically have an easier step for level 2.
Yeah.
That's great. I hope they all do that. But again, obviously we'll talk about spoilers, but even with the spoilers and the hunt events, Croc is great. Let's talk about the other quarry. Well, there's 2 more quarries, but first we'll talk about Smog Singers. I don't know how much we can actually talk about Smog Singers that remains spoiler free. I'm gonna try here. and if you guys want to add something else, but
Yep.
basically the most spoiler-free way I can handle this is they're 3 monsters. They're the first multi-monster showdown that we have. I don't consider the dung ball a monster, and I don't consider the minions really, the shades and the. I know they are, but this is the first time where you have three monsters that all act when you draw a card, which is really neat. The way it handles multi-monster showdown is good. I think the Smog Singers handle multi-showdown monsters a little bit better than the encounters do. I like the way the Smog Singers did it better. I like how simple it is. I like how easy to track. I like the mechanics that they have. I don't want to spoil everything. It's yeah. I don't know if you. Someone else want to take a crack without spoiling.
Mechanically speaking, they have a showdown that is very unlike other showdowns. You don't often feel like you're challenged until you're dead, and that's a very different way of considering a showdown. I didn't find them to be engaging all that much, but the more I played with them, the more they started to grow on me. They fall into the same trap with a lot of Node 2 monsters, which is that they're probably slightly underpowered comparatively. So they're fine. Yeah. They're just okay.
They're a little undertuned. They have a lot of really innovative ideas. And so like the Croc, like to kind of compare it, I feel like the Crimson Crocodile is a lot more kind of just, hey, good back to basics, just like good KDM executed really well and like superbly, with some cool stuff thrown in. And Smog Singers, I sometimes say Smog Stalkers because they used to be Smog Stalkers, and I ironically referred to them as Smog Stalkers for long enough that sometimes my brain confuses the two. They are full of just really wacky and offbeat ideas, and they do a lot of them pretty well. Yeah, it is a lot of like, oh wow, you guys are just sitting back and letting me kill you. Oh wait.
Well,
all right. Just died.
Yeah, we could talk more about it in spoilers. They're fine. They're a fine Node 2. They're really gimmicky. I think they're just gimmicky. I think they're fine. I don't think they're just fine. I think they'd make a fine Lope replacement if you don't want to fight the Lope. They're fine. I think they're better than Spooter right now, but I think Campaigns of Death is really going to help Spooter. We'll have to see, but I think they're fine. I don't think I wouldn't buy Gambler's Chest just for Smog Singers. That's my opinion.
Yeah, they're still real good.
Yeah, I would highly recommend listening to the spoilers because I think when we can actually talk more about it, I think you'll find them more interesting. So let's move on from them. Let's talk about the third quarry, which is King. I can't speak much to King. I have not fought it. As I said, I will respect everyone asking me to do everything blind live stream. So I have not done it, but yes, I have looked at all their cards. I have looked at everything, so I would be informed for this, and I can do an opinion on them, but I can't do it as well as everyone else here can. So, Tennis, you want to do King? I know you were the first one to stream it.
Yes, I streamed my Lantern Year 22 level 2 King fight. It was such a blast. I was a King doubter. I thought, the King is going to be one of like the worst parts of the chest. The design, the Team Death hasn't released a quarry that is introduced at that high of a year. I'm not sure if they're going to be, if they know how to make a good fight like that. I had many doubts. The King is amazing. It is this synthesis of so many different gimmicks and ideas and mechanics in its showdown that are all really different, that mesh together amazingly well. It's an amazing fight. The king is an awesome force of nature. It's great. I love it.
I'm in absolute agreement. It is, I think, the best fight in the chest, and I say that the Gambler and the God Hand are both really fun, really fun, but you only get to play them once.
That's
You get to fight the king as many times as you want at many different levels, and each of the 3 levels has a really different feeling.
Yeah.
And there's also that element of other decision parts. You know, you're trying to think of other things alongside the fight itself and winning the fight, which is again the same concept as philosophies and knowledge levels up, where it's changing the way you think about a showdown in the game, and that's very, very, very fun. It's an amazing fight. I have a small caveat though, which I think the gear may be overtuned slightly. It's extremely powerful gear.
I have some nuanced opinions about that. We'll talk about that later. I see where you're coming from, but yeah. The king is really cool. Great flavor, great mechanics. It does so many different things, and they're awesome. Magnetize the head of the king.
Oh yeah.
Don't worry about why. Magnetize the head of the king, and you'll know when, and you'll be really happy.
Yeah, I haven't fought it, but I've looked at everything, watched people fight it, watched both of you fight it, so I know about it. I think it's pretty straightforward. I have to agree, its gear is very straightforward and very powerful. But we will talk about just power in general.
I'm a bit of a dissenting opinion. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Well, I think there's mostly two. Two gear I think is so super straightforward and so powerful. But we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think the king, from what I've seen, I've not fought it, but from what I've done, and like I said, I read through all the AI cards, read through all the hit locations, everything, so I could, part of the discussion and everything. I do agree, from watching it and reading it, it does look super cool. I think it has transformed my opinion on Node 4s because I was in agreement. I don't know how a Lantern Year 20 quarry would work, and I think it arrives...
Like the king, apparently.
Yeah, well, I know, Tennis and I specifically, because you've been videos before, we both were of the opinion this was going to be a 4-5-6. And I think even being a level 1 is fine. We'll talk about some more of that in spoilers, but it doesn't adjust all that stuff. But before we move on, how does this work in People of the Lantern? I'm super interested.
Well, there's a strong incentive. Do we assume that people are familiar with the late game of Lantern here, or do we avoid spoiling that?
I would assume anybody would be, if you're looking to buy Gambler's Chest and invest in it, right? I would think so.
That's fair.
Okay.
I would agree.
People of the Lantern, once you defeat the Watcher, which you can do anywhere from Lantern Year 20 through to 25, you can only hunt level 3 monsters from then on in. The king doesn't arrive until Lantern Year 22, which means if you hunt the Watcher at the earliest opportunity, which is usually the right way to approach it, you fight level 3 kings and level 3 kings only. That is a nerve-wracking fight in Lantern Year 22, let me tell you.
You'd get to feel alive then.
Yeah, I was on tenterhooks.
Were you able to bag a level 3 king year 22?
I was, yeah. You can go and see it. It's on film.
I want to.
I think what it does is it incentivizes you to push the Watcher fight backwards so that you can have a couple of hacks at the king at
That's
level
what I was
1 or 2
say.
because
Even
the
just
king
like
becomes
1 or 2.
Yeah, just 1 or 2 because the king becomes a lot easier to manage with some king gear. So without going into too many spoilers, but yes, it's a great change to how you handle late game People of the Lantern. I don't know that I would recommend the king in that campaign for that reason, because if you aren't expecting it, you're in real trouble.
Yes. But it is doable.
Doable. Yep.
Now, I thought the same exact thing because again, I haven't done the Gambler's Chest stuff with People of the Lantern. I do want to. I will do it all, but I was kind of going to put this in the same place as Lion God. You basically want to push Watcher until you can actually fight Lion God. If you're going to fight Lion God, you push Watcher because you don't want to fight Lion God level 3 your first time. That's how I was approaching King.
Yep.
But we have heard that is. I'm pretty sure Taste has said that Campaigns of Death might address that. The level 3 only stuff. But that's interesting to know. So, let's go to the next core, from one core to another core, and let's talk about Gambler. Gambler is the core monster of the People of the Dreamkeeper campaign. Before we get to Gambler, let's talk People of the Dreamkeeper campaign itself. People of the Dreamkeeper campaign uses all these systems, but I don't think Gambler, the Gambler specific thing is one philosophy. We're not going to get into that without spoilers, but the Gambler has a core philosophy, which the other cores hopefully soon will. But outside of the fact that the People of the Dreamkeeper just uses all these systems from Gambler's Chest, what do you think the impact of the People of the Dreamkeeper and Gambler actually is without all these systems? I think it's pretty low impact. I know it also forces hand. So People of the Dreamkeeper is also going to force hand every single time.
Yeah, like the actual mechanics of like the literal campaign itself are much more along the lines of People of the Lantern, where it's not super big. It's not like People of the Sun or People of the Stars, where their central gimmick transforms everything.
I agree.
Which is probably good, because, this campaign was meant to demo all of the things, including Ark survivors. And it would be really crazy to try and manage, oh, hey, what's an Ark survivor? And then also this huge other campaign mechanic. So it works.
Yeah, it felt very introductory. It felt very much like, hey, here's these cool things. All we really want you to do with this campaign and with this box is just play as many campaigns and play games. That's it.
Yeah.
That feels like the overall message of the box.
With a few very notable exceptions for some events in the campaign that are awesome.
Yes.
I agree. But for the most part, so you both agree, Gambler's pretty hands-off with its actual campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. That's how I felt about it too. It's pretty hands-off. It's like Watcher. It's not very much. Mm-hmm. Then let's talk about the Gambler itself as a monster, which you will only fight once, which I agree is kind of disappointing. It's pretty fun, kind of. Gambler's gonna be hard for us to spoil, or hard for us to not spoil. I mean, and to talk about it. Let's just say, Gambler is a gimmick, and it's a fun gimmick, and
it's my favorite fight in the chest. And
really
a decent amount. I love the Gambler. Gambler fight's my favorite. It's wonderful.
I could get on board with that, except you only fight it once. I'm not sure if this is a spoiler. It's a very much a fourth wall breaking fight, which feels very, very cool.
Yes. I don't know if I can get on board. It's the best one in the chest. Or my favorite.
It is my favorite. And one of the great things I love about it, I was expecting a fourth wall breaking thing, and I was still surprised at what it did.
It's really hard to talk about that fight without spoiling.
There's really not much else to say without spoilers. Just like impressions.
It's a neat core. I don't view it as highly by itself. I think by itself, it's I don't know. Do you guys ever see yourself using Gambler ever if you don't want to play People of the Dreamkeeper? Like, I know it's hard. I know you have to. It's like saying you want to play People of the Land without Watcher, but I don't know if I would if I could sub Gambler and still play. I can't wait till I can sub out Gambler. How about that?
I'd think about it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Campaigns of Death approaches that, because I was
Yeah.
sort of thinking, it'd be really fun to try having the Gambler as your Lantern Year 20 monster and then face off against the Gold Smoke Knight. That'd be a fun variation on the game. But yeah, the other part of the Gambler, which is probably a downside, is the philosophy that comes with the campaign people of the
Yes.
Dreamkeeper.
Okay.
Which,
Yeah. Yeah. So
which
watch
I
the
think
spoiler
is
video.
very, very
The Gambler is
Yeah.
one I'm going to talk about pretty heavily. So I would go to spoilers for that. I don't see I think the Gambler is one of the weaker parts of the chest, but I think that's my personal opinion because I don't find fourth wall stuff super fun. So
I don't either.
there's still fun stuff to be had.
I love it.
Yeah, it's fun to be had, but I think I equate it to like Kingsman. I think its gimmick's gonna run out. But it's fun. Let's talk about God Hand. I can't really speak to God Hand. I watched both of you fight God Hand, and I've read all of its cards. Again, can't really speak to it. Well, Tennis, you were the first one. I think you got the first confirmed kill. And your way of
God
beating
Hand's
it was
fine.
enjoyable as hell.
It's like, yeah, it's there. It serves as a final boss. It didn't fill me with joy like the Gambler did, but that's fine. I'm pretty neutral on the God Hand.
I enjoyed the God Hand. The hand in general, right? Like the hand's story is very much, it's like, hey, how about we don't fight and we just sort of dance around a bit, and that's really annoying. I find fighting the hand annoying, so I was expecting it to be like that in the God Hand fight. It's much better than that, and it's a vastly different prospect when you have one rule implemented versus one rule not implemented.
That's very true.
So it's a good capstone for the campaign. It's
Yeah.
either a straight up victory lap, or you'll probably get the snot beaten out of you very quickly. So
Yep, which is I think that's a good spot for a final boss to be.
Here's the one thing I have to say about God Hand. I think it is intrinsically locked to Ark survivors, and I don't necessarily enjoy the fact that you can't use it outside of Ark survivors and People to Dream. I think it's very restrictive, and I'm not super. So not super.
Yeah,
I don't see why you would include something like that in a expansion that's pitched as a system expansion where everything is variable, except and then the God Hand is like so locked to two systems.
Yeah, the God Hand and the Gambler are specifically people of the Dreamkeeper.
Yeah.
and they do talk to that in the rulebook about how
Yeah.
You must include those two in a People of the Dreamkeeper campaign, and it must have these things. So we'll see how Campaigns of Death addresses that and what it looks like in the future. But
Sure.
but for now, they're fine.
As it is now, the God Hand is not a Gold Smoke Knight replacement.
No, cannot do it.
Yes, cannot do it. So that's the main. The Gambler you still could use as a core, and maybe you could fight Gambler and Gold Smoke. I think that could work if you just ignore the one thing. But I don't see God Hand ever working without the two of them. So that's my one caveat for God Hand. So let's, now that we've spoken about everything, I think we've covered everything. I think there's some other stuff we'll talk about more in spoilers, but that are worth talking about by themselves, like individual philosophies and stuff. We'll talk about all that stuff, but they're very spoiler here, individual knowledges, stuff like that. But Gambler's Chest, on the whole, as a full box that you buy as a singular expansion, as your only expansion, and you play that. How are you feeling about that? Or just overall? I can start, because I think it's going to be a very similar answer from both of you. Gambler's Chest was 100% worth the wait. Gambler's Chest is so good. So good. I'm glad that they took the dev time to do it. I'm glad that everything seems to be pretty above par. I think there's there's some stuff we can debatably talk about with spoilers. I do tend to agree that maybe scouts are a little bit weak and stuff, but on the whole, I think the gameless chest is a huge win.
I would have to say that as someone who didn't wait 7 years, and someone who has backed a lot of other Kickstarters, you can feel the quality, the love, the difference in this versus a product that has just been sent out as quickly as possible. It feels polished, it feels professional, and most of all, it feels really, really fun. So for me, it was worth 3 years wait. I definitely think that there's probably some elements of it that are overtuned and maybe could have been sent out into the masses. But yeah, it's a overwhelming, resounding success from my perspective.
Yeah. I do hate the question. Was it worth the wait?
True, I get that as well. Let me rephrase it because I also agree. I also agree with that because other things could have come out in that time. I agree with that. Let me rephrase it.
What I mean about that is there were a lot of parts about the wait for the chest and kind of a lot of those in between years that there was some poor communication stuff. There was not great stuff, and also I don't know what the original chest was. It's hard to say, was it worth the wait when you don't know what the wait exactly got you? What that extra dev time did. I can guess. It's a muddy question there.
Sure, I agree. Yeah.
Which is also to say, the wait can be bad. That is its own separate bad thing. But the other separate good thing is that I was floored and impressed by the chest in a way I was not expecting. I was expecting to like it. I was not expecting to be so impressed like I was. So it is great. It is a great product. I do agree with you, Deno, that you feel so much of the love and the care and the attention in it. It is a wonderful and kind of triumphant return to Kingdom Death releasing gameplay stuff without 5-year gaps, hopefully.
Let's hope.
Yeah. I mean, because everyone else who's probably waiting for Black Friday, they have no wait, right? You have a couple months. You have no wait. It's great. I think it is a resounding success. Even with the negatives do not outweigh the positives. I have some negatives, but they're so low impact, the negatives. So
I feel so positively about Kingdom Death and the future of it now. So much more than I did before it came. It earned back a lot of faith and goodwill.
I had a decision to make 3 years ago, which was, do I buy everything from Phase 4? And I decided not to. I decided to just buy the Gambler's Chest and the Campaigns of Death. This Black Friday, I will be buying every Wave 4 expansion. So, because of how much faith and enthusiasm I have now in the game and what I think it will look like in the future. So, if that's not a glowing recommendation to drop 3,000 Australian dollars, I don't know what is.
Yeah. So let's get to some questions now that I've collected from those waiting on Black Friday to maybe see if it drops, or maybe who are just on the fence in general.
Yeah.
So these questions, we'll start with some softball ones. Then I put them the harder ones, more intricate after. So just the systems overall, if you were to buy it just for all the systems, yes, I think all the systems are all pretty good. Scouts are a little bit low, but yeah, I think it's all good. I think each system works well. So the question is, how does each new system integrate with Kingdom Death? How do you guys feel about them? Not individually, just as a bulk, the systems themselves.
Yeah, I feel like most of them kind of fit in pretty neatly. They expand on good things. They're generally pretty solid. They're good.
Agreed.
Arc survivors and philosophies fill a major gap in the base game, in that development of your survivors is exciting.
How reasonably do things piecemeal?
I can answer that one, bro. So far in the People of the Lantern campaign, everything felt like it slotted in seamlessly and considered. Like it felt like they hadn't just gone, here's all these mechanics for People of the Dreamkeeper and good luck with how it goes in Lantern and other campaigns. I really do want to try People of the Stars, which I think is probably the most hard integration of Ark Survivors. But overall, I think every part will slot into a campaign piecemeal however you want, and it will feel like it belongs.
Yep, I agree. And with the exception, as you brought up, with Ark survivors specifically have a bit of a weird time in People of the Stars, because People of the Stars rely a lot on getting fighting arts, and Ark survivors have problems doing that, which is a thing that the rulebook itself notes. It does say, like, hey, yeah, you can play Ark survivors and People of the Stars. It's going to be weird, though, so be ready.
It feels like People of the Stars hard mode, and I'm there for it. Let's go.
But yeah, that's fine. And also, that is something that I don't know if they will ever address, but they definitely could address and make those things mesh more if they ever decided they wanted to.
Yeah, I agree. I think piecemealing is very easy. I don't think there's you don't have to tinker around. Like you're not going to have to be like, well, I'll have to move this card. It's not like, it's very seamless. I think. I think the Ark survivors, as everyone's saying, would be the biggest lift because that's the ones where you have to consider the most. But other than that, I don't think. I think you could just you drag and drop anything you want. Very easy, plug and play. Is this this is a two-part or this could be answered in two ways. So the question is this a good first expansion to a New Kingdom Death player?
No.
Yeah.
Or yes.
Well,
so no, because it adds so much complexity and so much variability to the game. But yes, because if you are only going to get one expansion, this is the one to get.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If you're like I'm only going to spend a certain amount of money, I would spend that money on this if it's going to be $400. But if you're like, I only want to spend like $100, then yeah, I'd maybe get like, I don't know, Black Knight, something.
Yeah, I can agree with that. The big caveat is that like if you are just fresh off of like your first core game and you try and go into Ark survivors and all of that, it might be a little tricky because they are super fun. The system is very deep and complex, but it is a really non-trivially greater amount of cognitive load and complexity. It's a lot more. That's really the only like reason I would hesitate for like Ace. If this is like your only thing, it's like okay, it's like you're in the big kid pool.
And then the second part of this question was, if it is, should I just jump into doing People of the Dreamkeeper?
No,
definitely not.
No.
I think I agree. It's a pretty hefty lift, but at the same exact time, I've always been of the opinion where I don't want to gatekeep you from using your stuff. I've always been of that because people always ask like, "Oh, you think Lantern or Lion Knight is so bad?" But at the same time, if you own Lion Knight and don't just if you bought all the campaigns of death and just because I think Lion Knight's a little weak, you should find ways of use those hybrid stuff like that. So if you were to drop 400 on this, I would at least maybe do low impact stuff, right? You just spent $400 on it. Maybe don't do Dreamkeeper right away, but maybe run one more Lantern with Scouts and maybe Ark Survivors, and then then move on to People of Dreamkeeper next time.
Yeah,
I would hate to think someone has some $400 thing they bought and just sat it on the shelf.
Nice art book though.
Yeah. Let's see. This is a big one. This is very triggering. How manageable are the new systems for a solo player? So, let's put a caveat on this. Should we answer this? Let's answer this question with and without Scribe.
Oh, I don't use any online gaming stuff ever. I'm all pen and paper.
I am as well. So how manageable are these? That depends on your tolerance. Some people are going to be very annoyed. There are times where I got pretty annoyed with it, but
it's a lot.
And especially if you're playing in a min-max way, right? If you're really looking, like, your first Grand Feast is going to be annoying, and then, if you're playing really, really min-max, where you want to get the most of all your endeavors, and you want to get the most of all your intimacy, and you want to get, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. But if you're a little more willy-nilly, see how the dice roll, I could see it being fine.
It is a lot as a solo player. My first campaign was actually really funny because a lot of the time I would finish a fight, go to the settlement phase, go through kind of like events and stuff, and then I'm gonna go do some laundry or do some errands or things as I'm mulling over all of the decision points I have to make in this settlement phase.
Yes.
It's a lot. It's really fun if you're in the mood to fully engage with it. But if you're not, it can be a little overwhelming.
Most of the episodes of A Lantern Year that I released go to about an hour and a half. That would be about 3 hours of filming because I would be
hey, that's what I do.
Just think, what do I think about this? Or what gear's the right thing to do
that
here?
That sounds right.
Yeah. It's a lot. Like, Scribe has absolutely minimized a significant amount of time for me, but I played my first few campaigns pen and paper, and I don't think I would recommend Scribe to anyone until they've done that, so that you understand all of the mechanics and how everything is supposed to interact.
I agree with you.
It was a lot. My first campaign was a shit fight. Like, I got so much stuff wrong. So, yeah, it's a challenge, but when it starts to click, that's when you're just like, wow, this feels so good. I'm so excited about all of these decision points that I've got. So difficult, but worthwhile.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna rephrase these next two questions to fit with what we just talked about. So the questions were, how compatible are these things with People of the Sun, People of the Stars? And then, what parts would you recommend using in People of the Stars, People of the Sun? I'm just gonna wrap this all up into the settlement stuff. Like, if you're playing solo and you're willing, a lot of to get those other campaigns to work. If you're gonna try to push everything in there, that's on you, because they don't necessarily all work very well, and it might be a risk. Like, as people were saying with Sun and stuff, I don't know if I would necessarily try to force all that stuff in. I think you might have to, like, I don't want to say homebrew, but you're going to have to be very mindful of that bookkeeping, especially in Stars.
Yeah, it all works pretty well, aside from Stars is the outlier because of its campaign-specific mechanics.
There's homebrew questions that come up at multiple instances that they're not addressed by the rules. Clinging Mists is a fantastic example. What do you do with the Clinging Mists Ark Survivors settlement in a People of the Lantern campaign?
Make up what you want to do and go from there.
Yeah,
exactly.
Clinging Mist is the wasteland of reason.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's actually
vibes there.
There's other instances where that sort of question comes up. So I think the answer is all of those elements will work. Every now and then you'll come across something that's just like, well, I'm not really sure what to do here.
Just
so
decide to do something.
Make your best guess. Yep.
Yeah.
This one we're just going to do quick.
He's turning in his grave right now. He's like, ugh.
Yeah. This one we're just going to do quick. We don't need to explain it. We talked about everything real quick. So, what are your favorite and least favorite? So we're just going to do one and monster. So mine's Croc. Least favorite is probably Godhand. Not because I don't like to fight. I just don't like the fact that I can never use it outside of Gambler's Chest.
Yeah. Favorite is Gambler, least favorite is God Hand.
Favorite is King. Least favorite, Smog Singers.
I get that.
All right. I'll say it's to do the God Hand thing. I'll be more. I don't like Gambler either. I'm not. That might be my least favorite thing. That's just because, like I said, I don't like meta. So the God Hand felt like an out because, like I said, it's not interchangeable. What would you pick aside from God Hand, Tennis?
Oh, can you repeat that? I didn't hear that last part.
Aside from God Hand, because God Hand, like, it just took an out because it's you can't use it anywhere else.
Yeah, probably Smog Stalkers,
Smog.
but like they're still pretty good.
We'll talk about Smog. I'm forgiving with Smog because of their one mechanic, and we'll talk about that in spoilers. So, this is an interesting one. I haven't thought about this. It's probably only going to be Deno who can answer this one. So this is probably just specifically for Deno. Which expansions from the current 12 are best to use with GCE?
I can probably answer that with some confidence.
Yeah, I
think
can't quite.
Slenderman is a really good change.
Yeah.
There's particularly a philosophy that makes that fight very interesting. Sunstalker, Dragon King both felt great. I think they're a good replacement for the Phoenix and add value. You do miss out on the indomitable patterns and some of the changes to the Phoenix, but they both feel really good. I preferred the Antelope in the Smog Stingers slot. I tried that in my second campaign. It was really good because the monster-specific knowledge for the Screaming Antelope is awesome fun, really cool. And that's probably all I would recommend. I mean, I went for a green armor run in the second one, and I didn't think Gorm was necessary. The crocodile was all I wanted to hunt. I didn't really want to hunt Gorm.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the replacing the Phoenix with either of the level 3 nodes felt good.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it. I got to get through. I'm playing them as is with just Gambler's Chest, so I haven't really thought about it. Tennis, you've thought about it?
Not too much.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Super valuable Deno. Thank you so much. Next, we got 3 more community questions left. This one is an odd one because we've talked about it kind of. I'm just going to read it as is, but then we're going to answer it differently. So the question posed as is was, it'd be really helpful to know, based on the pillar system numbers and stuff, which ones introduce the most complexity and which ones are more of a middle ground when using the base game, and how much complexity those numbers actually represent.
Arc survivors are a ton more. They are a meaningful amount of cognitive load at kind of every stage of the game. They are more complicated in the showdown phase. They are more complicated in the settlement phase by a lot. And the rest of things are much less impactful.
Yeah, you could add seed patterns to every campaign moving forward, and you would never feel like that was a bad thing. You could add characters, assuming you've defeated the God Hand by the letter of the rules. Tennis has done it for you, so you're fine.
Yeah.
And that would be fun, and I actually think that would be a really positive addition.
Yep.
The monsters, no problems at all, but Ark Survivors is a vastly different question. It's like if the others are all 1s and 2s, it's a 6 or 7.
I agree.
The complexity that it adds.
I agree.
Yeah, don't do it.
When we talked about the pillar system, I don't know why it's there. It feels like it's going to just be fleshed out in the future. Right now, I don't know why it's there. I think those numbers, they just feel arbitrary. Like you two both just said, Ark Survivors should be like a 6, 7.
I'm telling you, it's like the Richter scale. It's logarithmic. It's not linear.
Yeah. Now this is a good question. Now we've got 3 really good questions we can take time on if we want to. This one we got.
Yep.
This one's a really good one. Where do you think the new monsters sit amidst someone who's contemplating buying more this Black Friday? I'll just say what I think. Croc is better than anything else you're going to get from Gorm. So if you're looking to buy, I just don't think it's possible to piecemeal Gambler's Chest. Even if you were to do, say you wanted to get a Gorm to do your Node 1 for Croc, if you wanted to get a Spooter for Smog Singers, Slenderman for Atlas, a Dragon King or Sunstalker, either one, those are both cores, so either one of those, and then a Lion God, or DBK, I guess DBK is technically also Node 4, but you'd have to buy 5 expansions to piecemeal what you get from Gambler's Chest, and I just don't think you'd be piecemealing with the same amount of quality. So that's my opinion on this.
Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah.
Okay, that was easy. No dissenting, huh? Okay.
Well, it's a great value box. Like the amount of stuff you get in there, and how it changes the game. You know, there's no other expansion that comes close. And even People of the Stars, People of the Sun in Sunstalker and Dragon King don't really come close to what this adds. So.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. There's this questions. This one's a little bit more difficult to answer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm reading through it because I copy pasted. This one's very specific.
Yep.
Okay, which monsters would you if from Gambler's Chest, if you took monsters out, or when you replaying People of the Dreamkeeper, are you ever taking monsters out?
Atlas.
Smoke Singers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you guys? I don't know if I'd ever want to play Dreamkeeper again without. I guess if I were to play Dreamkeeper again, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Lantern, so just because of the sandboxy nature of it and playing with everything else, I don't know when I'll go back to Dreamkeeper. I think once I beat Dreamkeeper, I think I'm just gonna I'm just sandbox Lantern in like every other way possible.
Yeah, I can see that. Dreamkeeper is it is still very sandboxy like Lantern. So it's kind of easy to change around that stuff.
So is Dreamkeeper the new default for either of you?
No.
I'm not sure yet.
I think no. So I think I'm a no too. All right. This is it. Final community question, and this is a hard question. Do you ever see yourself going back to using normal survivors or Arc survivors going forward?
No, Arc survivors forever.
I would have answered the same way up until I completed my People of the Lantern campaign. I think I will go back to normal survivors for just something different, and maybe to just, I guess, splash around in the kiddie pool for a bit.
Like a palate cleanser.
Yeah, just, hey, let's just play a simple game. The cognitive load is a lot. And so...
It is.
But I vastly prefer Ark Survivors. But I think it would be fun to just try. There's some new fighting arts that came in the Gambler's Chest attached to some of the monsters that, seem quite interesting. And it'd be fun to see how things like Scouts feel with just fighting art survivors, with normal survivors. Maybe that changes how I feel about them.
That's true.
So, yeah, I think I'll give it a try. But I would be 90% Ark Survivors, I think.
Yeah, I probably will also try those. Like, I'll try going back to see how it feels. But I don't anticipate I would ever not do Ark Survivors. It's a lot more complex, but oh gosh, like you get so much more.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm not 100% Ark Survivors either. I think I'm probably the... well, I think we could start off with this. We'll start off with this question, the spoiler one, because my opinion and what I would like to... There's some other caveats I would have with Ark Survivors. So I'm not 100% sold on using Ark Survivors forever, because the most spoiler-free answer I can give is I don't know how much fun there is to have in that. You two can take that however you want. I think it might get boring and very meta-y if you do forever. Yeah, that's the best way I can say it. I think maybe if there was a way to mix them, that'd be great. I would do that 100%. But I think it's fun to go back and maybe power down a little bit.
Okay.
So that's it for our non-spoilers. Anything else you guys want to add for non-spoilers? Otherwise, we're going to do the spoiler video. So hopefully this answers questions. I know it's hard to talk about things without talking about it, but hopefully this was still helpful. Spoilers are a thing that I would hate to ruin for someone, because you can only play Kingdom Death blind one time. And I highly recommend everybody does get that experience. And Gambler's Chest is a great one to play blind.
Yeah.
It's tons of fun.
Yeah, it's a great box. It has a lot of really good stuff.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you two for joining me. We will now do our spoiler video.